Hi everybody, I'm Dennis Daly. I spent 20 years with United Press International, most of it with the old UPI Radio Network. And my favorite assignment was going on the road producing and hosting American Montage. It was an hour-long weekly program. Now here's an edited version of one of those shows. This week on American Montage, we are deep in the heart of bourbon whiskey country. Clermont, Kentucky is our venue, and we are visiting the sprawling little city, if you will, put together by the Jim Beam Company. Our host is Booker Noe, who is a sixth-generation member of that family, and Jim Beam is one of the oldest continuously run companies in the United States. Booker Noe, I just went away with a very warm feeling. What a neat man, and what a splendid, wonderful, one-of-a-kind voice he has. We were talking about the fact that the Beam family had to discontinue its operations when Prohibition went into effect, as did all distillers and wineries and breweries in the United States. But after Prohibition was repealed, Jim Beam got to work rebuilding his facilities. And Booker Noe remembered a very important date and a letter he got concerning that.
I got a letter at home where it states it was 1933, December the 7th. My birthday, as a matter of fact. In 1933, that's when he wrote a letter requesting permission to a license for distilling. He had two distilleries at the time of Prohibition, F.G. Walker Distilling Company and Clear Springs Distilling Company. And so, and he got started in 120 days. And that was a terrific feat.
Booker, let me ask about Jim Beam himself. From what I've seen, he not only had to be a very energetic man at age 70 to do
Absolutely.
this, but he knew the value of advertising and personality, putting up great billboards, getting in line with that industry. People were out driving on the highways. It seemed that he did really all the right things to revitalize the company on the strength of his personality.
Yes, well, see, now he had a partner by the name of Harry Bloom. And see, it was, after Prohibition, it was Jeremiah, my uncle, that's Jim Beam's son, and Jim Beam. And then that was in Kentucky, and the people that were marketing it was the name of Harry Bloom, and he had some people with him, so they all together, he did the marketing.
But it would seem he really realized, let's revitalize the industry, and he was, I'm just impressed by the fact that he did it very much on personality, which is what we see in advertising now. But he was, in a way, very much ahead of his time, merchandising himself, his name, along with the product.
Well, yes, he traveled to Chicago, and they put up signs and billboards and things up there, and that's the way they did it in those days. And I guess personal appearances also. Yeah, he did that.
Booker, let's walk through here if we can. We've come in here and it's turning into fall and becoming cool anyway, but it must be 20-some degrees cooler in here. We are basically in a, you say it's a 9-story building, stacked 3 tall with barrels, and this is where the product ages.
Yes, and there would be 27 barrels high, 3 barrels to the floor, times 9 is 27. And the reason it's so cool here, this massive amount of bourbon sitting in here, there's 20,000 barrels, and the temperature always remains cool and damper on the lower. It's hot and dry on the top. Now, if we were to go up top of this building, you'd have to shed your jacket. I mean, well, maybe not today, but in a real hot summer, I mean, it gets up to 125 degrees or so up on the very top and on the very bottom. It stays like it's air conditioned here on this thing.
Sure does.
And that also affects the aging process. Just like, for instance, it'll all go in at a given proof, and it'll lose, and let's just say take an 8-year aging period. This barrel you're looking at here, it will lose probably 15 points in proof. Mm-hmm. And if you go on the very top, it'll probably gain 15 points.
How do you then, with the product sitting on different levels, different temperatures, how do you, when the final product comes out, make sure that it tastes the same year after year? How do you take the consolidating process? How does it all work?
Okay, we take a cross-section, a vertical cross-section. That means you'll draw from all levels in the rack house, and it'll go into a large, very large tank, 50 to 60,000 gallons. That tank stays pretty well full, so when you draw it out, you have such a massive amount of whiskey in there, bourbon in there, that you can maintain your quality that way, because and a vertical cross-section.
One of the things that I have learned just in coming here today is that there's something very special about these barrels. Can you, for those of us who are very new to this process, explain just how important what you do to the barrels is and the aging process itself?
Mm-hmm. These barrels are made out of white oak. This oak is aged. First of all, they cut the tree down, then they'll cut it into rough staves.
What has always amazed me is that barrel making is such an ancient art. Today, someone would sit down with a computer and figure out that the stave has to be tapered here and fit there. Intricate design. It's, you know, I don't see how they invented making the barrel, because it's essentially a liquid-type container, but it breathes to some extent, but yet all these staves are a different size. I mean, there's almost some magic connected with making the barrels.
Yeah. The staves they're sold by the thousand, and they 4.5 inches is what one stave it costs you. Now, I think now they're going for around $3,000 a thousand. Now, if it was to a 2-inch, you would be able to get 2.25. The ends of the barrels, the heads, you know, they're open, and there'll be a natural gas or a propane they'll be setting vertical, and they'll run across, and they'll be ignited, and they'll burn for a period of time, depending on how deep you want the char. And then as soon as say they burn a minute maybe, then they'll be extinguished by a blast of water. Will quench the fire, and then the heads will go in it. They're charred separate. They go in it after the final thing, and then the bunghole's drilled and tested for leaks.
Booker, maybe what we should do at this point is, I'm kind of getting ahead of the story. If you would, let's go through the process for people who have enjoyed bourbon whiskey, but yet never questioned as to how the process worked. The original Mr. Beam, who came here to be a farmer. And it's my understanding that he suddenly realized that all of these grains he was producing, there was also some profit in making something else out of them other than just shipping the grain. Mm-hmm. Could you take us step by step, tell us what goes into Jim Beam, and if you will, calendar-wise, through the months of the year, how all that happens?
Well, the grains that we use are corn, rye, and malted barley. Malted barley means sprouted barley. It's sprouted, germinated, soaked in water, and sprouted, and the sprout gets about 3/4 of an inch long, and then it's dried, and that furnishes an enzyme. When you cook the grain, the malted barley is ground, of course, and it has an enzyme that will convert the cooked starches into sugars.
So after this fermentation, 3 to 4 days, and then you say we're up to a stage that's actually a beer, but it's not clear, it has product and it has to be taken out. What's the next step?
It goes into the still, and as it flows through the still, and the steam is injected into the base of the still. It continuously runs through, and out comes out the bottom. The alcohol's gone, and the vapors come out the top, and they're clear. They're crystal clear like water. Mm-hmm. So that's how you get rid of the solids. And as it ages, it mellows that corn out. It'll just change that. In the mellowing process, it just makes a terrific difference in it. I'm proud of the Beam family, and it's when I meet people there, they just, I don't know, they really seem to be too nice, you know. But I haven't never run into anybody that's scolded us. So I really enjoy it. I really do. Really enjoy being in the family and putting my 45 years in. Jim Beam put 50 years in. He had 50, but he had 40 before Prohibition and 10 after. Well, he had a 15-year rest, but I don't know whether I'll make 50.
Well, Booker, thanks a lot. I appreciate you taking us through, and you got a great place here, and we'll come back and see you sometime.
Oh, be careful.
And there you have it, another edited episode of one of the American Montage programs prepared for the UPI Radio Network back in the 1980s and 90s. I'm Dennis Daly. Thanks for listening. Thanks for going with me this week. And check YouTube for more American Montage programs.